Hey y'all, it's me again. Can continue reading from my book, The 1910s. Okay, let's go! The Navy steps into the future. The first attempt to launch aircraft from a ship. George Van Deurs, I think that's how you say it. In the 1910s, little was known of the aircraft's capabilities, particularly when applied to the United States Navy. Could aircraft be profitably used by that birth? If so, how would it be developed? These questions received a partial answer in 1910 when Eugene A. Ely took off from the deck of the USS Birmingham. The naval weapon of the future, air power, had been born, setting in place one of the main instruments with which the United States would rise to military and political dominance. Rear Admiral George Van Deurs writes of the moment in his history of naval aviation in the 1910s. On November 3rd, 1910, another air show opened at Hillthorpe Field near Baltimore. Again, Chambers, aviation pioneer Washington, left his desk in Washington to attend. Many of the Belmont pilots sent their planes to the Baltimore show, but an expressman strike held up delivering most of the planes, and on opening afternoon, only 2 Curtiss planes flew. One of these was flown by Eugene Ely. Ely was feeling pretty confident. He liked to fly. He was making big money and a good name in exciting business, which promised an unlimited future. His wife Mabel was also an aviation fan. A rainstorm stopped the show. By the evening, tent hangars were blown down and Eli's planes were smashed. Since nothing could be done at the field in such weather, G and Mabel went shopping in Baltimore. When they returned to the hotel at the end of the wet afternoon, they met Captain Chambers. Ely steps forward. During their conversation, Chambers mentioned he had just asked Wilbur Wright for a pilot and a plane to fly from a ship. Wright had flatly refused all help, saying it was too dangerous. He would not even meet Chambers to talk it over. Chambers was taken aback because it was Orville's suggestion in 1908 that had given him the idea. I hoped it would get the Navy interested in planes, he said. Gene Ely quickly asked for a job. I've wanted to do that for some time, he told the surprised captain. Ely would furnish his own plane and he asked for no fee. He had 3 reasons for his eagerness. He had argued shipboard takeoffs with other flyers, and he wanted to show them it could be done. He wanted the publicity, and he wanted to do a patriotic service. Chambers wanted to get aircraft manufacturer Glenn H. Curtiss's consent. Not necessary, Ely assured him. I make my own dates under our contract. That was a happy chance. As a matter of fact, Curtiss did his best to talk Ely out of it. Maybe he agreed with Wilbur Wright and thought it too dangerous. He argued that a failure would hurt plane sales. Mabel Ely believed he feared success even more. It might detract from the naval value of his hydroplane. Back in Washington, politician John D. Wainwright turned down Chambers' proposal to let Ely fly from a cruiser. Chambers' boss, Captain Fletcher, told reporters the Navy had no money for such things. Mayer returned to Washington and Baltimore that same day. Chambers asked Curtiss and Ely to back his appeal with technical argument. Only Ely went to Washington with him to confer with Mayer. The Navy hesitates. Secretary Mayer was back at his desk after his long inspection trip. Undoubtedly, Wainwright had coached him before the conference. Ely never forgot how the secretary covered his technical ignorance of aircraft and ships with an imperious coldness, and he never forgave him for calling Ely's planes a mere carnival toy when he turned down the proposed shipboard takeoff. Then John Barry Ryan, a millionaire publisher and politician, got into the act. 2 months earlier, he had organized financiers, investors, and scientists interested in aeronautics with a few pilots as the U.S. Aeronautical Reserve. He furnished his organization with a Fifth Avenue clubhouse, provided several cash prizes for aeronautical achievements by his members, and made himself Commodore of the organization. One of these prizes was $1,000 for the first ship-to-shore flight of a mile or more. Ronnie was in Washington to pledge the club's pilots and their planes to the Army and Navy in case of war when he heard of the Chambers-Ely plan and reopened the subject with Secretary Meyer. When Ronnie urged Chambers' proposal, Secretary Meyer responded that the Navy had no funds for such experiments. Ryan then offered to withdraw the $1,000 prize, which the non-member Ely could not win anyway, and use it to pay the cost of the task. Meyer had little interest in planes, but he was an accomplished politician, and he knew Ryan could swing votes in both Baltimore and New York. After consulting the White House, he agreed that the Navy would furnish ship with no money. Thereupon, he left town. Winthrop acted in a hurry. He rushed the Birmingham, commanded by Captain W.B. Fletcher, to Norfolk Navy Yard and told the yard commander to help equip her with the ramp which constructor McEntee had designed. The ship was a scout cruiser with 4 tall stacks. Her open bridge was but one level above the flush main deck. On her forecastle sails sawed and nailed until they finished an 83-foot ramp which sloped at 5 degrees from the bridge rail to the main deck at the bow. The forward edge was 37 feet above water. Meanwhile, Henning and Callan, Ely's mechanics, worked at Piney Beach, where later the Hampton Roads Naval Base would be built. Using bits shipped from Hammondsport and pieces salvaged in Baltimore, they built a plane. Ely got there on Sunday in foul weather. He added cigar-shaped aluminum floats under the wings and a splashboard on the landing gear. Late in the day, he saw the plane, without its engine, aboard the Navy tug Alice, headed for the Navy Yard. The engine had been shipped. No one knew when it might arrive. Gene Ely was not a worrying man, but the storm at Baltimore cost him money. Shortly before Belmont, a speck of paint in a gas tank vent had robbed him of fame and a $50,000 prize. In previous months, other crackers had bruised his body and damaged his pocketbook. These mishaps taught him how tiny, unexpected flaws could foul up a flight. He suddenly charged it off to experience and try again. Since his interview with Mr. Meyer, the cruiser flight had become a must. To his original motives, Ely had added an intense desire to show Secretary Meyer the error of his ways. At the same time, he knew that if he failed in his first try, Meyer would never give him another chance. And so Ely was worried when he joined his wife and Chambers at the old Monticello Hotel in Norfolk. Ely told reporters, "Everything's ready if the weather is favorable. I expect to make the flight tomorrow without difficulty." Mabel knew that her husband was whistling in the dark. He had not seen the platform. The plane was untested. He hoped his engine would come on the night boat, but she had complete confidence in Gene, so she enjoyed a seafood dinner and untroubled sleep. Ely ate little, turned in early, and slept poorly. In the morning, as he worried into his clothes, the clouds looked level with the hotel room. He skipped breakfast and took the Portsmouth ferry. Ely takes off. Cullen and Henning have hoisted the plane aboard the Birmingham, pushed it to the after end of the platform, and secured it with its tail nearly over the ship's wheel. Only 57 feet of ramp remained in front of the plane. Henning was worried, but Cullen had reassured him. "Oh, Gene can fly anyway," he said. Then Ely's chief mechanic, Harrington, arrived with the engine. The three were getting it out of the crate when Ely and Chambers boarded the ship. At 11:30, sooty black coal smoke rolled from the Birmingham stack, she backed clear and headed down the river. Two destroyers cleared the next dock. One followed the cruiser. The other headed for Norfolk to pick up Mabel, Eli, and the Norfolk reporters. Going down river, Eli helped his men install the engine. He wanted to double check everything to avoid another failure. Besides, the familiar work eased his tension. He blew out the gas tank vent twice. In spite of squalls, they had the plane ready before the ship rounded the last buoy off of Penny Beach. They had almost reached the destroyer Bailey and Stringham, waiting with Winthrop and other Washington officials when another squall closed in. A quarter-mile off Old Point Comfort, Captain Fletcher anchored the Birmingham. Hail blotted out the Chamberlain Hotel. It was nearly 2 o'clock when that squall moved off to the north. Eli climbed to his plane seat. Henning spun the propeller. Under the bridge, the wireless operator tapped out a play-by-play account of the engine testing. When the warm-up came to an end, nobody liked the looks of the weather. Black clouds scudded out just above the topmast. The cruiser Washington radioed that it was thick up the bay, and the Weather Bureau reported it would be worse the next day. Chambers nodded toward the torpedo boat. If this weather holds till dark, he said, a lot of those guys will go back to Washington shouting, I told you so. By 14:30, the sky looked lighter to the south. I don't know what that is in regular time, because I'm not really good with military time. Captains Fletcher and Toots decided to get underway. Iowa-born Eli could not swim, feared the water, got seasick on ferry boats, and knew nothing about ships. He thought the cruiser would get underway as quickly as the San Francisco Bay Ferry. He had no idea that the wind last he heard wheezing and clicking under the aeroplane platform might take half an hour to heave 90 fathoms of train out of the mud. So he paced first the bridge, then the launching platform. Then he climbed into his seat and tried the controls. 60 fathoms of train were still. Henning spun the propeller. Eli opened the throttle and listened approvingly to the steady beat. Under the plane's tail, the helmsman at the wheel took the full force of the blast. Eli was ready. He idled the engine and waited. Then he gunned the engine to clear it, twisting the wheel for the feel of the rudder, rechecked the setting of the elevator, and looked back at the captors on the bridge wing. They looked completely unhurried. Then Eli noticed the horizon darkening with another squall, and he began to wonder why the Birmingham did not start. He looked at Chambers, pointing at the approaching blackness. The captain nodded. He knew it would be close, but he could do nothing. 30 fathoms of train were still in the water. Eli checked everything again and stared at the squall ahead. He seemed about to lose his chance because the Navy was too slow. At 15:60, he decided he would wait no longer for the ship to start steaming into the wind. If ever he was going to fly off that ship, it had to be now. He gave the release signal. Harrington, who knew the plan, hesitated. Eli emphatically repeated his signal. The mechanic yanked the toggle, watched the plane roll down the ramp, and drop out of sight. Water splashed high in front of the ship. Then the plane came into sight, climbing slowly toward the dark clouds. Men on the platform and bridge let out a breath they had held. One of them spoke into a voice tube, and the wireless operator tapped out, Eli, just gone. In 1910, Curtiss pilots steered with their rudder, balanced with the ailerons, and kept the elevator set by marks on its bamboo push rod, either at a climb, level, or glide position. In order to dip and pick up a bit more speed, Eli took off with his elevator set for glide. Off the bow, he waited a fraction of an instant too long to shift to climb. The machine went up but squashed down through the gate. He felt a sudden drop. Salt water whipped his face. A rattle like hail on a tin roof was louder than his engine. He tried to He tried to wipe the spray from his goggles, but his gloved hand only smeared them, so he was blinded. Then the splashboard pulled the wheels free of the water. The rattle stuck. He snatched off his goggles and saw dirty brown water just beyond his shoes. The seat shook. The engine seemed to be trying to jump out of the plane. Eli's sense of direction left him. There were no landmarks, only shallows in the mist and that terrifying dirty water below. He swung left toward the darkest misty shadow. He had to land quickly. On the ground, he might stop the vibration, take off again, and find the Navia. He wondered if the bulky life jacket that fouled his arms would keep him afloat as the plane splashed. A strip of land bordered by gray, weathering beach houses loomed ahead. 5 minutes after the mechanic had pulled the toggle, Eli landed on the beach of Willoughby Spit. "Where am I?" he asked Julia Smith, who had dashed out of the nearest house. "Right between my house and the yacht club," she said. It sounded funny, but it wasn't. He knew the splintered propeller would not take him to the Navy Yard. He had failed. He blamed himself bitterly for the split-second delay in shifting the elevator. Now he knew how to do it without hitting the water, but would he ever get another chance? A plane could fly from a ship. Boats full of people converged on the yacht club dock. The enthusiastic congratulations confused him. "I'm glad you did not head for the Navy Yard," Chambers told him. "Nobody could find it in this weather." Captain Fletcher agreed. John Barry Ryan offered him $500 for the broken propeller. "A souvenir of this historic flight," he explained. Eli figured that in not making the Navy Yard, he had failed, and Chambers and Ryan spent the evening trying to convince him that he had succeeded. His particular landing place was unimportant. It would soon be forgotten. The world would remember that he had shown that a plane could fly from a ship and that navies could no longer ignore aeroplanes. Eli did not cheer up until Chambers promised to try to rearrange the chance for him to do it again. "I could land aboard too," was Eli's comment. The next morning, Ryan's valet wrapped the splintered propeller in a bathroom and carried it into his Pullman drawing room. There, Eli gave a champagne party until train time, presented Eli with a check for the propeller, and made him a lieutenant in his U.S. Aeronautical Reserve. After the train pulled out, Gene spent the check on a diamond for Mabel. The morning of November 15, 1910, the Birmingham flight filled front pages all over the United States and Europe. Foreign editors speculated that the United States would probably build special aviation ships immediately. American editors more familiar with naval conservatism said the flight should at least lead Secretary Mayer to ask for appropriations for aviation. But Wainwright's friends belittled the performance. The ship could not fight with its guns boxed by a platform. "A masthead lookout," they said, could see farther than Eli had flown. And so it went, and so it would go for a long time. This argument between the Navy's black shoe conservatives and the brown shoe visionaries. Please rate, comment, and subscribe down below. And on YouTube, please ring that bell notification so that you can know when I upload. And on TikTok, please like and follow my videos. And on YouTube, let's get to 50 subscribers. And on TikTok, let's get to 40. So that I could do something special for you guys, okay? And, anyways, buy something on either my eBay and my Mercari, okay? And, yeah, have a happy Tuesday. Bye.